Hi there, and welcome back to Queens Behind the Scenes. I am your host, Charise Beckett. And before we get into what we're here to talk about, I just want to tell you that I'm doing this in the evening. So now we have wine. And on my cup is the lovely Moira Rose. So that's the kind of vibe I'm in tonight because I'm home and we are snowed in on the East Coast. I mean, not actually snowed in, but my street's pretty solid ice. So I'm excited to talk to y'all today about why believing in yourself changes everything. I got a lot of good gems in here and things I've learned along the way. So I hope you are chilling and able to listen. So first of all, let me say this very slowly. Believing in yourself is not a personality trait. It is not confidence. It is not arrogance. It is not something you're born with or without. I want to start there and excuse the nasally thing. I have a little bit of like allergies, I think. Anyway, but here's the part we rarely talk about. You cannot truly believe in yourself if you fundamentally do not like yourself. And for many of us, especially women, especially high achieving women, especially women who have survived things we do not casually talk about, liking ourselves becomes the first thing we abandon in order to survive. It has happened. We learn how to perform. We learn how to achieve. We learn how to lead rooms. We learn how to deliver results. But somewhere along that line, we stop trusting ourselves and quietly we stop being kind to ourselves and in fact, kind to others as well. Shirley Ralph, I just saw a clip of her and I just absolutely love her. She said something that absolutely stopped me in my tracks. She said, everything works out for me. And it was in a clip. I saw it on Instagram. Somebody had posted. And then she followed it with this truth. After you have your mantra, you have to be able to look in the mirror and love what you see. Because when you do not love yourself, you will be the unkind person in a room. And that hit. That, as the kids say, that cooked. That was that line really mattered because it's so true. Because what belief without self-regard turns into performance again, right? Achievement without self-liking turns into resentment, and leadership without self-love turns into, as we all know, what it looks like is control. So episode is about why that happens, why it's dangerous, and how believing in yourself and liking yourself are inseparable. And how I learned to achieve both, even with the evidence around me told me not to. I want to walk through all that. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about the work nobody ever applauds, because that is some real deep ass self-work that is challenging and it is personal, and we don't talk about it because it is so personal. So here's the truth nobody tells you. You can be smart without believing in yourself, right? You can be talented without believing in yourself. You can be successful without believing in yourself, but you cannot be free without believing in yourself. And that's facts. And you cannot stay free if you secretly dislike who you are becoming in order to be accepted, or you secretly dislike who you're becoming in order to remain in a container or remain in a system where you have to operate in a way that makes you not dislike yourself or that makes you feel like you don't like yourself. Self-belief is the difference between staying in rooms that shrink you and leaving with clarity and peace. It's the difference between asking for permission and making decisions rooted in self-trust. We know this, but we don't talk about it. Most women I work with are not struggling because they lack skills. Let's be real. They're high earning, high potential women. They're struggling because they no longer trust their own instincts. They have outsourced their inner authority to bosses, to systems, to titles, to timelines, to other people's comfort. And often they have learned to be impressive instead of authentic. Sorry about the sniffles again. Believing in yourself is reclaiming that authorship over your own life. And liking yourself is deciding you deserve to live it fully. So let's take a drink to that. I sure am myself. It was very good. So let's name it. Belief erodes slowly, and so does self-liking. If it erodes through like chronic self-betrayal. So staying quiet when your body says no, explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That is a hard one I have had to learn, because it's like I'm hard-headed. Listen, and my mom always said a hard head make for a soft ass. And that is so damn true, because I would literally put myself in situations where I didn't really know that the people were committed to misunderstanding me, but I knew something was off, and I would still be in the system trying to plead my case or explain that. Performing strength while privately doubting your worth is not, we not operating like that. But here is the part we really do avoid. Sometimes belief breaks because believing costs you something, and liking yourself costs you even more. I want you to hear that. Believing might cost you approval. Liking yourself might cost you proximity. Believing might cost you security. Liking yourself might cost you familiarity. Believing might cost you a version of success that looks good on paper. Liking might cost you access to people who benefited from your self-doubt. Hey, that part. So instead of believing, we coast and cope. Instead of liking ourselves, we tolerate who we are. We tolerate ourselves. And coping looks productive until, right, it doesn't. So the backlash of like self-love is what I say. We never talk about this part. Nobody warned you that when you genuinely like yourself, some people will experience that as a threat. They do, because they don't like themselves, right? So what you're showing up as something completely unfamiliar to these people. But it's not because you changed, but because you stopped needing them in some way. You stopped needing their validation. You stopped needing something from them. So that is like, what to them, this is like, I am walking into alien waters. So when you love yourself, you stop over explaining. You do. You stop that shit. Full stop. You stop auditioning for a part you've been had a long time ago. You already had the part. You had your part, the backup part, and the other people's part. But you stop auditioning because now you love yourself. We've all done it, right? We've all done that. We're always auditioning. I remember there was a time when I would say, in fairness, it was because you don't understand, you don't think people believe you know what you're doing, so you run down your resume when you're in a conversation. I've accomplished a lot. There are a lot of mountaintops I have been sitting atop of, right? And so for me, I was like, I am not doing this audition shit anymore. Like, I don't need your validation. I don't need that shit from you. I'm not putting on a performance to gain anybody's approval. You also stop shrinking your tone, your ambition, or your needs. Do not abandon your needs. Do not abandon your ambitions, and definitely do not shrink. I talk about that a lot. And that can make insecure people very uncomfortable. They operate in a way where they need something, right? They need you to feel a certain way so they can feel a certain way, so that they can operate a certain way. You are not put on this earth for those people to feel whatever way they feel. That's their damn business. Right? That's their business. And here's how backlash, though, shows up. At work, it looks like being labeled difficult when you're just simply clear. You operate in clarity. In friendships, it can look like distance when you stop over giving, right? And in leadership spaces, it looks like resistance when you no longer perform gratitude for access, right? When you like yourself, you are not easily manipulated by fear. And systems that rely on fear do not like that. They do not like that. I remember somebody said to me, well, I don't want to get in trouble at work. I wish the hell I would think that anybody's getting me in trouble. I'm a grown up, an adult. So are you. Trouble? That is something that doesn't even creep into my head. But that is why self-love work is not soft work. It is disruptive to your system. It has been disruptive to my nervous system because it is hard as work. It is hard. It's so hard that sometimes you got to sit in it and then you take that action, but it is really hard. And I want to be clear, my story and my turning points, I'm going to really be very transparent about that. I did not wake up believing in myself. Now, I did grow up in a home where my mother told me that everything was possible, and I did believe in myself to a certain extent, but there are levels to this shit, right? Like, there are levels to believing in yourself, because I believed in myself in one way, especially in a familial way with my mother, but there are things that you don't believe in yourself about, or you don't believe that you can achieve when you are in that external world, when that starts to seep into when it starts to seep into life, right? There were seasons where I was deeply accomplished and deeply disconnected from who I actually was. I told you it started me a long time to start even this podcast or the things that I was working on, because it was hard. It was hard to believe I could do it. And that fear and doubt crept in. And fear and doubt can just keep you from your blessings, where you're supposed to be. And people that are insecure about themselves, they capitalize on the fact that you are kind of disconnected from who you actually are, right? They benefit from that. So they capitalize on that. From the outside, I was rising up. From the inside, I was negotiating my worth on a daily basis. Why not me, or why me, or these questions. I mistook tolerance for maturity, right? I mistook endurance for strength, and I mistook being needed for being valued. And they are very different things. They are extremely different things. The turning point was not confidence. It came to me in a form of exhaustion. I got tired of abandoning myself to make other people feel comfortable. I got tired of winning in rooms where I did not feel safe being my whole self or being whole. That was the beginning of the belief for me. And that was the beginning of learning to like myself again. I have no shortage of confidence. I gotta say that. And not arrogance, just confidence. I do believe that everything I want to do, I am able to do it. Now, does it mean that it'll take several iterations to get it right, or it will take trial and error? I told y'all, I believe, failure, it's a part of the scientific method. So I believe that failure is only there to produce the better result. You work and rework until it's the way you need it to be. But that was the beginning of belief. And that was the beginning of learning to like myself again. It really was. So, how I activate self belief and self liking, and I think this is the heart of this episode. One of the things I do is I collect evidence. Belief is not just vibes, it's data, right? It's data to yourself. I document my wins, patterns, resilience, and decisions that worked even when they were unpopular. I document that. I journal all the time. When doubt shows up, I do not argue emotionally. I show myself the receipts. Like, Charise, are you kidding me? Bam, bam, bam. One of the other things is I monitor how I feel after interactions. There's some interactions that I have on a regular basis that make me entirely uncomfortable, but I have to be in those situations just based on the work that I do. And after those interactions, I sit in what I'm feeling and why I feel uncomfortable and why my heart rate was raised. And I do say, just really always pay attention to your physical reactions too. But liking yourself sharpens when you notice who leaves you drained and who leaves you grounded. Your body is always the truth teller. My bestie and therapist Erica and I talked about this in May last year about like the body keeps score. There's a book about it. I wouldn't get the Audible. It's a bit boring. I love whoever wrote the book. It's a great book, but I can't do the Audible because it's so clinical and I just do not love it. But the body does keep score and it is the truth teller. Pay attention to your body after interactions. I also stopped romanticizing potential. I no longer stay where the promise is bigger than the actual reality. Like, show me some shit. Okay. Belief grows when your environment confirms your worth and you confirm it as well. Self liking grows when you stop explaining why you deserve basic fucking respect. Period. One of the other things, I speak to myself like a leader. I do. Not a critic, not a scared kid, a leader. Clear, grounded, kind, and direct. I speak to myself how I hope that somebody will speak to me. Those are kind of like the basis and the meat of it. But there are some activation exercises that I do. So the exercise, I love to share these with people. And listen, when I started doing them, I thought I was crazy. And I was like, oh, people are going to think I'm actually freaking nuts. But it isn't about people. It's about me and what worked for me. And I'm just sharing. And if you take something from it, I hope you can. Great. So the self-trust inventory, that's one of the things where I have been right, but ignored myself. Where did I override my intuition? What did that cost me? That is one of those exercises that I do often. The other is the self-liking check. Where am I tolerating environments that require me to dislike myself to belong? I absolutely do not need to be there. I have got to find my exit. Stage left or right, I gotta go. The other is the boundary test. Notice where belief increases when boundaries increase. That is not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence. Pay attention. That is not a coincidence. So those are like some basic exercises that I have learned to do when I do them on a daily basis because I'm so often having to reflect on interactions and how I'm reacting to them. And that's the other thing is just really centering yourself to check in with you. Check in with yourself. We have learned to check in with every damn body else. Check in with you. So one of the last things I want to talk about is like leadership power and playing small. So playing small is not humility. A lot of people who want to keep you in a place where you need their validation want you to play small and be, I am humble. You can be humble and still play big ball, big girl ball. You do not have to be small to be humble. And I don't know where or who came up with that, but it is bullshit. It is fear disguised as professionalism. Period. It is knowing what you are capable of and negotiating it down. We're not doing that. Belief does require courage, not loud courage, but quiet courage, right? The courage to say, this doesn't fit me any longer. This container, I talk about that container you outgrow. It doesn't fit me anymore. This no longer serves me. Or I trust myself enough to choose a different path, and I like myself enough to stand by it. I hope you could sit in that, because those words are truly things that that came out my journal, and I put them in there into the episode because I really do have to think about that. And I think that these are good prompts for people, like, what doesn't fit anymore? What doesn't serve you anymore? And what makes you have to be in an environment to play small just to belong? And listen, and I'm going to say this, and I may get some backlash, and I really don't care. That is the problem we have as women anyway, is this: we will, and not all, and I'm just generalizing here. I have seen women sit in environments where they are not asked to bring any of their expertise to the table. No one values what they're saying. They're sitting at a table playing themselves dumb and down because they want this proximity to power. It doesn't matter. And I say this, and this has been, I think, for a long time, the struggle with Black women and the trust with white women is because sometimes it does look like the proximity to power is more important than the harm caused to other people. And, I think with women that, and again, in that dynamic that I just talked about, that truly does happen. So I know this was a lot in a short period of time. It's been only like 20 minutes, but I did want to say that this season was ending back in April, and it wasn't about perfection this season. It was about truth. If you take nothing else, take this: belief is not something you wait for. It is something you practice daily, intentionally, and imperfectly. And liking yourself is not vanity. It is leadership. It is control of yourself. Remember that. So Queens Behind the Scenes will be back in April. Very excited about that. But before we return, I want you to sit with this. Without noise, without performance, without proving. Trust what comes up. As we move forward, you will see the work show up in new ways in Queens Behind the Scenes, through more like short form conversations, through deeper, sharper dialogue on corporately speaking, which we are dropping February. I am so excited to partner back up with Mark and do this work, through a growing brand that is less about visibility and more about truth. So obviously, this is not the end, but it's an expansion, and we will be back in April for our third season, which is insanely crazy. And the community is growing. It's growing slowly, but I have realized something in this time is that I am not, I'm not entertainment. I'm, more dropping kind of gems and talking about personal growth. And I've realized that platform grows a little bit slower, and I've learned to really sit in that and appreciate that. But thank you for walking the season with me. Thank you for trusting the space. And most importantly, thank you for choosing yourself. I will see you soon. Thank you so much.